This Newcastle United pre-season preview edition of the Premier League Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by our Patreon. Score exclusive perks, content and contests, including our NFL win totals contest with a $1,000 prize. Join today at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. Welcome everybody to the Premier League Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. My name is Malcolm Bamford, coming to you from Newcastle upon Tyne in the northeast of England. We are cracking on with our 20-team preview for the Premier League season, which kicks off next Friday night, the 11th possibly of August. Joining me is Mr. Barry Penaluna. Hello, Baz. How are you?
I'm not bad, Malcolm. Looking forward to this one. This is our bread and butter, Newcastle United. We could talk about this. This one could be 2 hours easily, couldn't it?
It could be. We promise it won't be. If you've never listened to this rubbish before, it won't be 2 hours. We will go away at some point. But it is exciting, Baz, because normally I have to really remind myself not to talk about Newcastle all the time. But tonight we can. And we've actually got an actual real live proper guest this time, Baz. Not like some bloke you met in a bus shelter or someone I went to college with in 1992. We've actually got an actual guest. So the plan for tonight is, what we're going to do is, Pete Graves from Sky TV, a Newcastle celebrity fan. We recorded a little chat with him. So it's really worth a listen as well. If you're not excited enough for the new season, Pete had me running through a brick wall. So give Pete a listen. And then me and Baz will go through some of the odds for Newcastle to do stuff over the coming season. We're going to make some picks. We've got plenty of stuff to choose from as well. I'll tell you first about our Patreon. A few places you can find us in the SGP Patreon is one of them. Exclusive contests. If you like the NFL, the win totals contest is in there with a $1,000 first place prize. The monthly SGP Stories podcast, the Discord channel, all the free picks are on there. sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. You've obviously found this show by hook or by crook. So any Newcastle fans listening for the first time, this isn't a Newcastle podcast, but it is hosted by 2 Newcastle supporters. So it's quite a high percentage of Newcastle chat. But we do weekly shows, 2, sometimes 3 times a week, where we look at the Premier League fixtures over the weekend. We'll give out some things that we like, some things that we don't like. We'll make some picks. We'll cover the Champions League, which will have an added edge this year for Newcastle. And then we've got the EFL show going out on Thursday. The Women's World Cup is live as well. We've got a fantasy league, which we cover with Pete. Pete gives out some of his fantasy takes as well. A show within a show here, Baz. Added layer is we pre-recorded Pete on a pre-recorded show. So we're going to get 2 different levels of how bad your cold is, just to keep people guessing. When people said it couldn't be done, Baz, so do you want to tell us where along the line of your cold are you now?
I'm fresh as a daisy now. I was pretty rough when we spoke to Pete last week. But I have recovered, so people will be obviously happy with that, because I almost died, didn't I?
You were lucky to be alive. You almost lost Baz last week. He had the man flu. So if he sounds a bit rough here talking to Pete, that's why. However, don't listen to me and Baz. Listen to what Pete Graves has got to tell you, because it's absolutely outstanding. So we'll hand across to Malcolm and Barry and Mr. Pete Graves. Now, Baz, we have got an incredibly special guest joining us to talk a little bit of Newcastle. Incredibly fortunate to have him. You might know him from Sky Sports TV, being a big Newcastle United fan and all-round dreamboat. Joining us is Mr. Pete Graves. Hello, Pete. How are you?
Oh, Mal, I'm great. Thank you so much for calling me a dreamboat, because I've always thought that about you. But that's
that's true. Yeah. No one's ever thought that about Baz, Pete, so that's sort of 2 out of 3, as Meatloaf would say, innit?
Even Laura doesn't consider Malcolm a dreamboat.
Yeah, you should have seen me in 1988, Baz. I was in great condition.
That was great to see you. I don't know how you put up with Mal all the time doing this regularly together, but fair play to you, mate. Someone's got to do it, and obviously you got the short straw.
To be fair, we've done about 7 in the last 3 days, and I'm sick of the sight of him now. Good to have you on.
We've got 2 more to record after this, Baz, so I'm not going anywhere out your life for another 2 hours. About half an hour ago, Pete, you messaged me and said you're going to be a little bit late because you were talking to Les Ferdinand. So did Les ask after me and Baz? Did he have anything to say?
Yeah, Les, the first thing he said, funnily enough, was how's Mal and Baz doing? So it was great to meet him. But no, Les is brilliant. And I was just chatting to him about, it's one of the best things about what I do is that, I get to speak to my heroes all the time. And Les was one of my heroes. And he was telling me again about when Shearer signed for the club and Keegan pulling Les to one corner in the airport and telling him that he was going to sign Shearer that day, and he wanted him to know, and he wanted Les to know that he wasn't going to sell him, and that he wanted to play the 2 of them together. And regardless of what anyone said, he believed Shearer and Ferdinand were going to be a great front pairing. And then the whole number 9 shirt came up and that conversation.
I always remember that because I bought about 2 weeks before Shearer signed. I bought my Newcastle shirt with Ferdinand number 9, and I've still got Ferdinand number 9 shirt in the cupboard somewhere. It was the old granddad collar shirt. I still remember the brown ale sign on the front. So I've still got it there with Ferdinand 9, despite the fact he was the number 10 the whole time. Brilliant.
Well, it could have been worse. He could have been the guy that got Andy Cole tattooed on his arm just before they sold it to Man United. But he was brilliant. He said that Kevin said, well, I had the number 7 at Liverpool as an iconic shirt. It didn't ever mean anything to me. And Les went, well, how come you've got a number 7 on a chain around your neck?
Got my Keegan number 7 shirt here, Pete, that came from our little trip out to Stanley, when my dad was so excited to meet Keegan all day. But then being my dad, he'd sneaked his own bottle of vodka into the thing. And by the time we met Keegan at 11 p.m, my dad couldn't string 2 words together. So he's got the photo, but he can't remember meeting him. So that was another low point. So Pete, obviously, you've got a great job. You've just said you're dead lucky to do what you do. You've worked hard, but you get to meet your rivals and stuff. But how much more fun is it now that your club, our club, your city, our city, your family, your kids, your friends are all getting to go on this mad adventure? Because as much as you've had a great job, this must just add, is this like just the cherry on the cake kind of thing?
I think it's harder now than it used to be, Mal. I think my life was a lot easier when Newcastle were terrible. I think I could go anywhere, and I used to do events of Manchester United supporters and Arsenal supporters and go around working for Sky. And you tell people you're a Newcastle fan, and they sort of pat you on the back and go, bless you, mate. Come here, give us a cuddle. And now we're all of a sudden we're a rival to some of the big clubs. So you say you're a Newcastle fan and the whole room starts booing, so it's probably harder in the same coming into work, and all of a sudden, we're a serious contender. And a lot of the guys I work with who support sort of so-called big 6 teams, all of a sudden I'm chirping into the office and I'm probably doing everyone's head in, to be honest, because I'm a huge Newcastle fan and I'm always banging the drum for Newcastle here. And so it's probably made my life a little bit harder, but from a fan's point of view, it's fantastic to go to the games and to take my family and to watch Newcastle play the football that they play, and I'm enjoying every second of it, and I just don't want it to stop.
Yeah, it just came out of absolutely nowhere as well, going back 2 or 3 years when we both had various season tickets and given them up for different reasons, and I craftily kept one in Bob's name, which I managed to make back into an adult. But then the WhatsApp groups were quiet. You didn't see your mates. It was games I just didn't want to go to. And now you wake up on a match day at 9 o'clock and you've got 10 messages in the WhatsApp group. What time we going out? Where we meeting? What pub we going in? And it's just a different thing. I mean, I've met plenty of other team supporters. I was in London a few weeks ago, and a lot of people genuinely say, we're pleased for you. Now, I don't know if they mean it. I was meeting Tottenham, Chelsea fans and stuff like that. A load of Arsenal fans. And they actually say, like, the older ones seem to be pleased for you. And it's the younger ones, so the Twitter generation, who aren't pleased for anyone ever doing anything.
I hate the Twitter generation, don't you? On the Twitter generation, the worst people in the world. I mean, I just think, I'm hoping that now they've changed the name to X, that it might, the whole environment might change. But what I've learned in life, if you listen to what people say on Twitter, then you'll be miserable your entire life, because no one ever tweets anything unless it's bad news. So you could say that Newcastle was signing Kylian Mbappe tomorrow, and I guarantee you there'd be lots of fans would be annoyed about that because they would say, "Oh, well, he's too much money." It's always where people go to sort of unleash their negative feelings, I think. So, yeah, they're the worst people in the world, the Twitter generation.
I always say, you don't go to Twitter for a fair representation of any fan base, because it is a horrible cesspit at times, isn't it?
Yeah.
I have a funny relationship because I hate it the same, and all the Newcastle fans whinging that we haven't signed every player that's ever available. But then when Newcastle win, I love going on Twitter to watch all the little videos and to watch all the Newcastle fans needling the Aston Villa fans or the Everton fans. So it's a proper double-edged sword. I can't sit there and love all of that and then at the same time hate it because I don't agree with. But I just have to keep telling myself that's not the conversation I have with Baz. The mad conversations about why we haven't signed Mbappe, why is Eddie Howe the right man for the job, sell Almiron immediately. That's not the conversation I have with my dad. It's not the conversation I have with the footy lads. The Twitter conversation is a different thing completely, and we have to keep going with that. So last season was mint, Pete. They had quite a slow start, 1 win in the first 7. And then all of a sudden, they caught fire. We were very, very hard to beat. It was the 18th of February, that second game that we lost against Liverpool. Had a little bit of a wobble over the winter where it was a lot of 0-0 draws. And I think that's when that weird thing stuck of Newcastle were mangling football, which is quite simply not true because we scored a load of goals. We showed we were capable of scoring 4, 5, 6 goals home and away. We scored loads of goals as well. Didn't concede many. And they were just absolutely outstanding. Liverpool gave us a bit of a scare at the back end of the season, but last year was just unbelievable, Pete. So where do you think that all came together? And, I mean, as a building block for next year, looking ahead, what do you expect to see this time around?
I expect a really successful season again. You see, I think 1 win in the first 7 games, but I think you've got to consider that within those 7 games, we drew away at Brighton, then we drew home to Manchester City. In each game, you never were coming away from a single game thinking, "Oh, we've been done over there or been battered." It seemed like from the very start of the season, Eddie Howe's plan came together. We'll have a very good season next season. There's absolutely no doubt. And there's one reason and one reason only why Newcastle will have a very successful season, and that is Eddie Howe. What he has done, and I say this with no hesitation, Eddie Howe is the best manager that Newcastle United have ever had. Ever.
Okay, bold feet.
I am very close with Kevin Keegan now, as you know, Mal. He's a great friend of mine. I think he would say the same thing about Eddie. I had a very close relationship with Sir Bobby Robson. I still host the Sir Bobby Robson Golf Weekend, and I'm very close with his sons, Andrew and Mark. I know for a fact, knowing those two guys the way I did, that they would be looking at Eddie Howe and they would be applauding the job he's done. The level of detail that Eddie Howe goes into is off the scale. I never met a man who knew more about football than Bobby Robson. I have now. His name's Eddie Howe. I never knew a man who was a better manager than Kevin Keegan and can make you feel $1 million. I know someone who comes close, and that's Eddie Howe. He's got the best of the 2 best managers in my lifetime, Bobby Robson and Kevin Keegan. Eddie Howe is almost like a hybrid of the 2 of them, in my opinion. The personal plans that he puts in place for the players is ridiculous. He took Fabian Schär to one side when he first got the Newcastle job. Fabian Schär had been on the bench under Steve Bruce. He took him to one side and he said, "I've always wanted to manage you. I've been watching you for years. I tried to sign you when you were at Hoffenheim. I know you're not great at coming forward and winning the ball, so don't worry. I'm going to partner you with someone who's going to win all the headers and you can drop off." And he gave them this. And then the next thing was he signed Dan Burn and Sven Botman to play alongside him. He signed Giants. He understands each player. He's put a personal game plan together for Jacob Murphy. He's flying. Miguel Almiron. He's flying. Joe Linton, who was one of the worst players I've ever seen in a black and white shirt, has literally gone from League 2 standard, in my opinion, to scoring for Brazil on his debut, the best nation in world football. He's now an international footballer. You never would have believed that. That's all down to Eddie Howe. They're all getting better. Isak's getting better. Gordon's going to be frightening this season after a full pre-season. Harvey Barnes and Tonali have just arrived. Give them a couple of months. Wait until the penny drops for Eddie Howe. Will have already told them exactly what he wants from them. When they do that, they will be absolutely mint. So make no mistake, there's no top 6 anymore. It's a top 8. Newcastle, and I think you've got to chuck Aston Villa in there. That is a top 8. That group of teams for me are in a different level to the other teams in the league, the other 12 sides. There's a top 8 now. The top 6 is gone. Newcastle are very much in it, and they will finish inside that top 8. And I really believe that they can have another tilt at top 4. The only thing that's going to scupper them is there's going to be more fixtures. They're going to have to play in the Champions League, plus Eddie Howe is desperate to win a trophy. That would mean more. If you could offer Eddie Howe a trophy next season and finish 8th, he would take it. In fact, if you could offer Eddie Howe a trophy next season and finish 17th, he would take it. And that might hamstring Newcastle because he will prioritise the Carabao Cup again. He will prioritise the FA Cup. He will try and win a trophy beyond anything else next season. So that might make our league position suffer. But I really hope that Eddie Howe's the manager for the next 20 years plus. And I honestly think we'll have another sensational season.
Well, Pete, I got a bit of a twitch listening to that. I've never been so excited. But 12 series been hanging around with Kevin Keegan. He's just got that, come on, vibe about it.
You almost had the hairs on my back. I mean, next stand up. I mean, it's interesting you mentioned a big 8. I agree. I think Villa are definitely going to be in the mix this year. And the reason for that is very similar to us. It's the manager, isn't it? Emery coming in is making a massive difference there, and they've recruited well as well. I agree. It'll be a big challenge. The concern for me is I think we arrived in the top 4 2 or 3 years earlier than anybody anticipated. When the takeover happened, I don't think anybody was going into last season thinking top 4. And now we've got there, the expectation is massive, isn't it? Whereas
I'd take people back to, sorry to interrupt, Baz, but I would take people back to the Sir Bobby Robson era. And I just think we've got to, as a fan base, learn from that era, because Newcastle finished in the Champions League places 2 seasons in a row. And it just became, everyone suddenly expected that was going to happen every season. And then the following season, when they finished 5th, it was like the disappointment was huge. And Bobby Robson lost his job on the back of that. Newcastle fans, I really hope as a collective, we can see, and I truly believe this will happen. I've got no concerns. But if they were to finish 7th, 8th, 9th next season, that there isn't a meltdown. This is a long-term project for Newcastle. They can't go out and buy the play. Fans saying, "Oh, why aren't they buying him? Why aren't they buying him? Or why didn't we go for him?" They literally cannot do that. They can't go out and buy 20 new players. It's not a complete rebuild. They're going to keep adding little 1 or 2 players here and there. Every single window, they'll add 1 or 2 great players. And over the next 5-10 years, they're building a team that's going to be good enough to challenge anyone. They're buying the best young players in the world. I mean, look at the players they're targeting at the moment. The likes of Livramento's 20, Tonali's 22, Harvey Barnes I think he's 23. They're targeting young players. They're not going for established internationals who are 20, 27, 28. They're going for young players, and they're also buying the next level, the 15, 16, 17-year-old, buying unbelievable players from around the world in that age group. This is a long-term project, and the fans have got to get on board, enjoy every second. Don't get too down in the dumps if there's an occasional defeat or an occasional 0-0 or whatever, and just believe that long-term, the success is coming. I've got no doubt about it.
I'm intrigued to find, having watched a couple of pre-season games, how you think we're going to line up at the start, because I'm suddenly looking at our midfield and our forwards, and we've got options, haven't we? For the first time in years. Last year it was Joe Linton, Bruno, Willock, but now you've added, obviously Longstaff as well. We're now adding Tonali into there, and Lewis Miley's broke on into the scene the last couple of nights and looked like he's going to be potentially involved a bit more. Loads of options there, and then also going forward, Wilson, Isak, but now we've got Barnes, Gordon, Almiron. There's options.
The wide men, there's dozens of wide men. You could pay 5 different people on either wing, because you could put then Joe Linton out there or Willock on the right and fit extra middle ones. So he did. Yeah, he played 3 at the back the other night for a half against Villa. So yeah, that's a good question, Baz. They're going to stick the same. because I just want them to stay the same. They were so exciting. They were pressing. They was creating loads of chances, scoring loads of goals. But yeah, do you think they're going to go on the same?
I think they'll play the same lineup, the same formation in the Premier League. I wondered whether the three at the back was. I thought across my mind there was one of two things. It possibly an experiment for Champions League football, where you see a lot of teams in Europe play a 3-5-2. Gordon, I think, is excellent in a 2. He did that for the under-21s at the European Championships, which of course they won. And he's been our best player pre-season for me. He's been really exciting to see how well he's done. He's been playing sort of central, and I think he's good there. Of course, he played from the left against Chelsea last night and put the ball in for Miggy Almiron. But I think Gordon's going to have a great season. But I think they will stick to the same formation because it's tried and tested from Eddie Howe and it works. But I just think Eddie Howe's very aware of the fact that he wants an alternative formation in his back pocket for if and when he needs it, a plan B. Because how many times do we talk about second season syndrome when a team does really well one season and the next season they get found out? Eddie will be very well aware of that because he's such a student of the game. So he'll be thinking, I don't want teams to think that they know what we're going to do. We're going to have something else that we can employ if we need to do it. And maybe the 3-5-2 is the option. And we've got so many players that can play in that 3. I mean, Dan Burn Dan Burn's been playing left back, but he'll slot in on the left hand side of a 3. Obviously, we've got players. Yeah, all the fans worry about Jamal Lascelles. I guarantee you, if he'd have been playing regularly last season, we could have been talking about him in the same way that we're talking about Jacob Murphy. Every time he was called upon, I thought he did really, really well. And I think that fans have to also, any preconceived ideas you had about players pre-Eddie Howe, you just forget him. Just forget him. Because if we judged all the players by what they were like before Eddie Howe came, I'd want rid of half of them. So just look at what's happened with Almiron, Murphy, Joe Linton, Fabian Schär, and put the other players, put your Matt Ritchie, put your Paul Dummett, put your Jamal Lascelles, put them all in the same category. It was great to see players like Dummett and Ritchie and Mark Gillespie get new contracts. I just thought Eddie's seen them week in, week out. As supporters, we're not. He's obviously seen enough to go, these are good players. I like these. And throughout his entire career, when he's been at Bournemouth, he's made players better. And he's always been loyal to players as well. So fans who wanted us to sign 20 new players in this window, never going to happen. He wasn't going to have a group of players that got Newcastle into the Champions League, finished 4th, got to a cup final, and then say, cheers for that last season, guys, but you're all gone. I'm bringing in 9-10 new players. Never going to happen. He's going to give those boys an opportunity to replicate what they did last season and have a go in the Champions League, because those lads deserve to go and play in the Nou Camp or the Bernabeu or the Allianz Arena. So that's why Eddie Howe's being loyal to that team, and I totally respect that. And that's why the group is so strong. And everything he does, I just think is absolutely brilliant.
Well, even the year before last is an example of that, when we signed Bruno. He didn't get in the team straight away because for a little period over that January, February, John Joe and Willock were playing really well. And I just thought, what sort of example would it have set if, say, all right, cheers, John Joe, thanks for all that. I know you scored the winner at Leeds, but we've got this shiny new kid here. And it didn't, and Bruno had to work his way in. And just, we mentioned Terza on this show a lot. He was complaining that he said Eddie Howe should have been sacked for giving Matt Ritchie some pity minutes at Norwich, I think it was, at the back end of the season. He said, it's a waste of time. Why is he wasting everyone's time? But you've got to understand, if the dressing room has the respect of Matt Ritchie's one of the leaders, and he's keeping Matt Ritchie on side by giving him the minutes. Matt Ritchie's then prepared to carry on doing what he's doing, carry on getting them all together. And nothing is happening by accident in that dressing room at that club. Right, Champions League, Pete. What do you hope happens this season? We don't have to be technical. I mean, what would your dream see? Where do you want to go? Who do you want to see will play? What's going to be a fun Champions League experience for you this year?
I'd love to see Newcastle get an absolute huge European giant, obviously in the group first and foremost, and then 2 very beatable teams from pots 2 and pot 3 would be the dream. And I'd like to see them progress out of the group stages, and that would be a dream for me. Just to see them progress out of the groups would be fantastic. I've got a funny feeling we're going to do all right in the Champions League. Just got this weird feeling that Eddie would have spent a lot of time now. He'll be obsessed with trying to get Newcastle deep into the competition, and he'll be watching a lot of European football right now as we speak. He won't be resting, and he'll be studying that competition. He's never been in that competition as a manager before. He will be thriving it. We're talking about it as fans. We're talking about it as players. He's a complete geek of football. He loves the game. He is going to be thinking, oh my God, I'm here as a manager. And he's not going to be wanting to stand toe-to-toe with your Carlo Ancelotti's and whoever else from world football. He's going to want to stand toe-to-toe with them and give them a good game. So I've got a funny feeling we might surprise a few people. There's always a team that sort of a dark horse in the competition. So I think Newcastle could do well in the Champions League. I think they could easily progress from the group. And then, I think that the draw for the group stages is, I believe it's the day after deadline day. So it's either the last day in August or the first day in September. That's when that draw happens. I guarantee I'm taking the day off work. I'll come and meet you guys for beers if you want, whatever you want to do. But I can't wait to see what the group is, and that'll determine a lot. But I've got a funny feeling we get one big team, a couple of beatable teams, and progress out of the group. That'll be sensational.
Have you made your pitch to the boss that you need to be at all these away games? If I turn on the telly and I see Keith Downey parading around Lisbon or somewhere, Pete, and I know you're sitting somewhere in leafy NE3, I'll be sorely disappointed. You need to get yourself out and about, like.
Well, you know what, mate? I'll be honest. I've already said to the family that and Sky are fantastic with me. If I went to them and said, look, I really want to cover these games as a reporter, I think they'd probably let me do it. But I want to go as a fan. There are times,
of course, yeah.
I want to be there as a supporter. I don't want to be. I want to. If I see people that I know, I want to be able to have a beer or whatever and just enjoy myself, jump in the fountain, whatever we're doing, right? But I don't want them the office to ring me up saying, "I need you to be here." So, look, if I have to work it, I'll work it, and I'll be very lucky. I'm very privileged to do what I do. But I also love the idea of going as a fan. And I said to my wife and kids, I said, "Look, Steph, when the draw's made, I'm booking flights to the places, and you and the girls can go and sit in a hotel or go shopping, do whatever you want, or come to the football if you want. That's totally up to you. If we can get a ticket, they're going to be like gold dust. But I want to be in those cities when Newcastle are playing there, and with my family, ideally, would be brilliant. So, it's been a long way, and I don't want to let it slip by, because you never know how long it could be again. Football, it feels brilliant at Newcastle right now, but football's a strange place. Everything that's going on in the world, you just really hope that this lasts for a long time. But I'm determined to enjoy this Champions League campaign. So wherever they are, I hope I'm going to be there, not too far away.
I could probably afford to get to Glasgow if we play Rangers away, maybe on the happy bus, the mega bus, whatever it is. Not the happy bus. That's a totally different trip. That was just a dog.
Mal, you're the one who tried to persuade me to go on some ship, didn't you? That
on the container ship.
On the container ship.
Was that you?
We could just travel. We could travel on a container ship to wherever the game is, mate. It'd be fine.
We'd end up in Nairobi or somewhere. That's the problem. Yeah, sorry about that, Pete. I say some stuff when I'm drunk. I wouldn't put an awful lot of store in that. I've got two more things I need to ask you about, Peter. Baz, is there anything pressing on that you want to ask Peter about?
No, it's all good. No, I like his thoughts for the season ahead.
Right, so I'll tell you what. First, I'm going to ask you about is you play a bit of fantasy football, don't you, Pete?
I love it. I'm obsessed. Yeah, I absolutely love it. I have a little reminder pops up on my phone every night now to remind me to check my fantasy team, because it used to be easy just do it on a Friday or a Saturday morning, but now the amount of time I've been done by a Friday night kickoff. So yeah, check all the time.
The Friday night lock does get you like. So yeah, we're having a listener league this year, which I've got the code for that. So any new Newcastle fans. We'll give out the details where you can find all the rest of our content around this show. But our listener league, the code is CVVQAB, which is Colaccini, Viana, Quinn, Almiron, Bentaleb. Nabil Bentaleb. You didn't think you'd get a Nabil Bentaleb sighting when you logged on here, did you, Pete?
Of all the players he could have picked for the B.
So yes,
they got a Beardsley, Bernard. There was millions, but anyway, I will join that league, by the way, as well.
Yes,
I would definitely join that league.
CVVQAB, 150 quid in cash. There's a lot of merch from the merch store. I've got my little jumper on here, looks good. And the Egg in a Cup is up for grabs. So who's your first thing I did was put 3 Newcastle players in because I'm an idiot. I imagine you probably did the same. So who were your Newcastle picks? Or I've actually started thinking about Anthony Gordon because I watched him last night and he made a good run. So I was like, I'll put him in the team. That's how I react to shit like that. So who were your little sneaky Newcastle fantasy picks?
You stole my thunder with Gordon.
Sorry, mate.
For years and years, I've always put 3 Newcastle players into my team, and my mates, we sit around and show each other the teams, and everyone's always said, you put 3 Newcastle players in. That's the reason you won't win. And this year, the 3 Newcastle player thing worked because all season I think I had Trippier from the start, I had Shaw from the start, and I think I had Almer on first half of the season. It was ridiculous. 3 Newcastle players worked this season. Gordon, I think, is not a bad shout. I think he's going to play a big role. Newcastle played a lot of money. I know it doesn't all come down to money, but if you look at transfer fees that have been paid, I think Barnes has got a good chance of being in that 11. Isak, Gordon, Tonali, Bruno. It's slowly become, with all due respect to the players that were there before Eddie Howe, I think there's a good chance that the new players that have come in post Eddie Howe there's a good chance that they might be in the starting 11. So I think Gordon's a good shout. Particularly if he's going to be used occasionally up the middle as well as a striker, so he'll score goals from midfield. The defence, Eddie Howe is a centre-back. He's defensively sound, so you've got to always going to get points with your Nick Popes or your Kieran Trippiers, your Shaw, Botman. They're going to be first names on the team sheet. So, anyone who plays along the Newcastle backline or in goal will get you points. The only problem is that Newcastle fans are going to face is all of the players are going to be a little bit more expensive this year than they were last year.
Yeah, true story.
Yeah, I mean, Trippier last year was in everybody's team by the end because for his attacking returns, as well as the clean sheet potential, he's on free kicks, he's on corners, and gets high up the pitch for all of his assists as well. But he's in at 6.5 million this year. I think it was 5 million last year. As you see, I think it's easy for the defence that it picks itself. Really, we know who's going to be in there. The challenge comes further up, doesn't it? Do you go for Wilson or Isak? Do you go for Almiron or Barnes or Gordon? It's wondering for me that it's the Gordon and Barnes thing is how we fit both of them in. So I'd like to see how we start the season. Who's got that left-sided spot to start with? And
they're both right-footed, aren't they? Both right-footed wingers who play on the left. So presumably it was not going to be very hard for one of them to go play on the right, or maybe they can interchange. Eddie will have some wild idea for it all, I'm sure.
I mean, for a spell last night, Gordon played straight down the middle, and they put Isaac on the left side as well. So we've definitely got options. I think we had Ewan last night, who's an FPL expert on the show, and he was telling us that things are different once the Champions League starts. You can set and forget a team early on. Once the European games start, that's when the rotation comes in. So there's a lot more strategy in that than I gave it credit for. My final question, Pete, we know time is money. Just give a prediction for the season. Where are Newcastle going to finish? And are they going to win something? That's important. What are we going to win?
As I said before, Eddie Howe would choose a trophy over league position next season. He's delighted to be in the top 4 and be in the Champions League, but he's so determined to be the person who brings a trophy back. And that could be a Carabao Cup, FA Cup, whatever. The title is out of reach, as is the Champions League. So if they're gonna win anything, it has to be one of the cup competitions. League wise, I just feel that I'd love to say we're going to finish 4th. I'm going to go with 4th. I'm going to put myself, but we'll have to have an unbelievable season. And I'm going to go with 4th again.
Where have you got them, Baz?
I mean, I've got them in 4th as well, but I could easily have had them down in 5th or 6th. I think Liverpool had improved, but I also think Man United might not be quite as good as their third place finish last year, so they could drop back a little bit. But I think, as you say, it's going to be a huge challenge for Newcastle to repeat last year's efforts.
Let's face it, if they finish in the top 6, it'd be brilliant. And if they're in the top, you take it now. I take top 8 now, guys, and just enjoy the Champions League. And I really would. 8th upwards would be fantastic. I mentioned the Big Eight, which I think it is now. I think you've got to Newcastle are the seventh biggest team, I think now. But I think you've got to include Villa. Villa are owned by a very wealthy Egyptian who seems to want to invest in his manager and in his squad. So I think you've got to put them up there as well.
Yeah, I agree with you, Pete. Pete the Graves, the voice of reason. Who'd have thought it, Baz? Much needed, because normally we don't. We have to be very careful about how much Newcastle we talk on the show, because it is a Premier League show. We try not to frighten people off. So we've got a little hour tonight where we can properly indulge ourselves, and it's been loads of fun. Well, I think I'm done with you, Pete. Baz, any last words for Pete?
No, that's good. That's all. I think it's been great having you join us, Pete, and getting your thoughts for the season ahead. And sounds like you're just as excited as we are for it. So bring it on.
Brilliant.
I am. Baz, Mal, really appreciate it. It's been great fun. Good luck with the rest of the previews of other clubs. And I'm sure we'll all see each other at St. James's Park for a pre or post-match bevy when the season gets underway.
Yeah. Well, if anyone joins that fantasy league, if you finish above Pete Graves, he has said that he'll buy you a pint in the Black Garter at 10 a.m. one morning.
That's going to cost me at least 3 pints, that now.
Yeah, just before he does Love Shack on the karaoke, which is standard. Right, cheers, Pete. That was tremendous, mate. Enjoy the season. We might speak to you soon. Yeah, thank you very much. Cheers, bye. Well, there you go, Baz. Pete Graves. I mean, how much fun was that? Do you know what I mean?
That was fantastic. Yeah, I mean, he speaks with so much passion, doesn't he, about the club? As I say, that you mentioned during it, sort of quite inspiring the way he talked about it at times. But yeah, I really enjoyed that. It was good to get his thoughts, and it made me feel a little bit more positive for the season. I'm fairly positive anyway about it, but it was good.
Well, I was quite excited after the first time we listened to him, and then I've just listened back again as we played that, and I'm more excited again. I'm so excited, Baz, for fans of continuity. My hat's gone all wonky. Look at that. That's how excited it's made us. My hat's gone to old Jasper Parnovic. Do you remember him, Baz, from the golf back in the day? Yeah. Pete Graves is Jasper Parnovic, my hat. Right then, what we're gonna have a little run through the bet numbers and some picks. I've just picked another live one, Baz, as we've been listening to Pete. That's how excited I am. I'll tell you first about Underdog Fantasy, which is one of our headline sponsors here. NFL season is right around the corner. A big part of what we do on the network here. Underdog Pick'em is a great way to get down on a ton of NFL player props. There's loads of opportunities to win in their daily MLB contests. If you enter Best Ball Mania 4, first place gets $3 million. Wallop. Head over to underdogfantasy.com. Use the promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. That's underdogfantasy.com, promo code SGPN. So, around the markets, Baz, to win the Premier League, Newcastle finished 4th last year, 71 points. This year they are 18-1 to win the league. A top 4 finish is 11-8, plus 137. To miss out on the top 4, you can get 8-15, minus 188. Top 6 finish, 4-9, minus 227. And to miss the top 6, that can't be right, 13-8. Yeah, plus 162. Yeah, that's right. It is right. Top half finish is 1-25. And then if you fancy fading Newcastle, 9-1 to finish in the bottom half, 500-1 for relegation. And on the handicap, they're getting an 18 points start. I mean, we looked at pattern and trends, Baz. Newcastle kept a lot of clean sheets. I think all the clean sheets that came around Christmas time, the 0-0 draws, all the low scoring games were sort of condensed into that club. So there is a lot in there, but I wouldn't say it was a pattern or a trend because, as we just talked about with Pete, we were very capable of putting up 4, 5, 6 goals. We did it a number of times, and at home or away. The one big trend, Baz, we picked up on, and we absolutely milked the daylights out of this all season long. You more than everyone else, but the Discord channel, all the listeners, man, it was like the word Scrooge McDuck dives into that big thing of money at the start. It was like that. Like, Baz, what was the big trend that you hit everyone on?
It was the corners on the Newcastle team corners. Certainly in the second half of the season, once we noticed the trend. I mean, to give you an idea, ordinarily the average corners in a Premier League game would be around 10 to 11 corners. And at least half a dozen times Newcastle hit 10 11s of their own. I think we had the odd occasion where they got 15 or 16. So yeah, we regularly climb the ladder on the Newcastle corners. Definitely one that we'll have an eye on right from the start. It's a shame you can't get some sort of spread bet across the season. Total Newcastle corners for the season would be a great way to play it. It's probably a little bit of a long shot that we can find something like that. But yeah.
Hey, you want to get the old hashtag request a bet on Sky Bet for that? Over 500 corners.
Yeah, we'd possibly wait to get a request in for a certain number. You'd have to have a think about what's a sensible number. I might have a look at that.
I've just thought about it, didn't I?
Well, 500 is ridiculous, isn't it?
Is it?
Well, that's
38 games. 12 there you go. Yeah, that's what we're on about.
But they don't hit 12 every week, do they? The average last year would have been about 7.5, Malcolm.
You've got no sense of adventure, you, Baz. That's your problem.
A bit too ambitious for 500.
That's why you won't be on the container ships. So what? Right. So right, you don't like that one. We're not taking over 500 corners. What bets have you got?
Well, Newcastle top 4. I said I've got them just in the top 4. 13-8. I just don't know. I think it's going to be really, really tight. 4th, 5th, 6th could go either way. So I'm not sure I would. I've got us in 4th. 13-8 is a good price. A team to beat. A team that I think will finish above at a half reasonable price is Chelsea. It's 4-5, so -125. But Chelsea are favourites to finish above Newcastle, and I'm not buying the Chelsea hype at this point. Like, they will be better. Pochettino will make a difference, but it's quite an overhaul there this pre-season. Let's remember they were 8 places and 30 points behind Newcastle last season, and suddenly the books are expecting them to be back in the top 4 race this season. And I'm not buying it yet. I want to see a bit more of Chelsea before I'm convinced that they're back. They need to demonstrate that first. So yeah, for me, Newcastle, you're not getting far off even money for Newcastle to finish above Chelsea. It's a 30-point turnover from last season. It's massive. So I do like that. That would be the pick that stood out from me. I was just having a little look at the goal scorer markets, Malcolm, as well. Top Newcastle scorer. You got any thoughts on that market?
Well, this is the one I've just looked at live, Baz, because like I said, we recorded this a few days ago. This is Wednesday, 2nd of August here. And when we recorded that with Pete, the lines weren't up for goal scorers. So just as I was listening to Pete's chat there, I was having a look. And it's obviously a match between Isak and Wilson. It's 8-13 Isak, 6-4 Wilson. And I think you have to take the 6-4 Wilson. I think they both will score goals, but in what competitions and in what order, I don't think there's going to be much between them. I would take whichever one was the bigger price, because I think either one could win. If the prices were the other way around, I'd take Isak. So I'm not saying Wilson's going to score more, but at the prices, I don't think there's anything in it. I mean, you could easily see Isak being rolled out every Champions League game and Wilson starting on a weekend. Isak could possibly play a little bit wider as well. And what we've seen with Callum Wilson is they score goals in clutches, or he scores goals in clutches. He had that mad run at the end of last year. He'd get himself on penalties. Even little things like, we're going to get around 105-minute games here, Baz. All the injury time and stuff. Callum Wilson can get himself 30, 35 minutes off the bench. And Newcastle were capable of battering teams. Newcastle get 2 or 3 goals late. Those will go from 3-0 to 6-0. And Wilson can chip in with them at the end of the year. It looks great value. I would have them heads and tails, like 10-11 each of 2. So at 6-4, I would take Wilson.
Yeah, I agree. I think you've got to take the biggest price of the 2. No one else fancy bigger prices.
Are we going down the list?
Harvey Barnes, 10-1. He scored 13 last year for a side who were relegated. The only concern there for me is I'm not sure he'll start the season. I think Howe will take time to get him in the start lineup, as we said.
That's the pattern of playing it. Yeah, that's the pattern of what they've done.
If he was in from the start, Harvey Barnes, I wouldn't back against him getting double figures again. And Isak got 10 last season. Obviously, he had a lot of time out injured and time coming in off the bench. But yeah, bigger prices. Barnes 10-1, Gordon 28-1. He's had a good pre-season, good under 21s, 28-1 for a little bit of a long shot, because you never know, injuries to your strikers, and suddenly Gordon could be thrown in up top, couldn't he?
I mean, I wouldn't buy it. If you put any money on anyone except, I wouldn't pick Almiron, because I think that little purple patch, as great as it was, it's not going to last forever. and his playing time is going to be, he's going to have fewer minutes this year with the amount of competition. But if you wanted to back Isak, Wilson, Barnes, Joe Linton, if you wanted to back Joe Linton, I'm fine. Or Gordon, I'd have no issue with any of them. Like, even the fact that our list has got 10 people on it. We recorded a Crystal Palace show a little while ago. There was 5 people on that list, and I think 4 or 3 of them had scored 2 goals last year. Like, you could easily, we've got like Sir Joe Willock, Sandro Tonali on the list, Bruno, and then all the proper ones, Gordon, Joe Linton. So, I mean, Joe Linton could chip in with easily double figures, 12, 13, 14.
I'm gonna chuck out Anthony Gordon, 28-1, Malcolm. There you go. Top Newcastle scorer.
The best thing about that is
a couple of injuries from strikers, and Gordon could be playing up through the middle, and you never know.
Absolutely, yeah, he's looked really, really sharp. He said himself he wasn't Eddie Howe fit. He's looked really good. That will really annoy Simmers as well. So that makes it worth 110 pence in the pound. My pick. So first off, I had top 4 finish. I cannot see why we just don't improve. I can only see upside. A lot of these players are just getting started. And bearing in mind, we had quite a slow start last year, and then a bit of a wobbly middle. We've added nothing but quality to that. So I think the top 4 finish is brilliant. 13-8 plus 167. I'm going to give the forecast out. I don't think we'll catch Man City, Baz, but I think we'll finish second to them. I've got us finish second. Manchester City to win the league with Newcastle in second is 10-1. And if anyone who's listened to this show before even once would know I'm going to give out Newcastle to finish above Man United at 11-8.
So it looks like Malcolm's just lost his connection there.
Oh, we're back.
He's back. Just as he.
Do you know what? That's the Man United bloody police, that, isn't it? Taking us down because I've said that shite. Just to repeat, Man United is shite. Rashford shite. The Morrison's butcher shite. All the new signings are shite. So Newcastle to finish above them at 11-8 is an unbelievably good price. We've got a better manager, we've got a better team, and we've got a whole load more upside. And I think, Baz, that's me covered for bets.
Good stuff. Yeah, that was
Are you
great
done?
Episode. Yeah, I'm done. As you say, we covered all our fantasy football stuff, so we've done it in a slightly different order. But yeah, that was good. If anyone is listening and enjoyed it, make sure you give the thumbs up on YouTube, like, rate, review on Spotify, Apple, follow us on Twitter at SGPN Premier, and let's keep it going throughout the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Wherever you found us now, you'll find us. And like I said, loads of stuff going on all season. Always a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but we give some picks. Sometimes we do great, and other times we don't. But yeah, it's good fun, whichever way. Thanks, everyone who has joined us. Thank you very much to Pete as well. Huge fan. The bloke's an absolute legend. So good luck with all your Newcastle picks. If you are a Newcastle fan, here's hoping we have a fantastic season. Lots of fun and games to be had. Until next time, we will see you down the road. Cheers.